Bear, we are back.
Back in the saddle.
What do we have, about 4 weeks of summer vacation or something
4 weeks,
like that? Or?
4 weeks seemed like an eternity.
It did, probably for our viewers out there. They were all
sure.
probably wondering where we have been over the last month or so.
We were bombarded with requests to get us back on the air.
Where are you guys at? It's been so long.
No. Well, I did get a couple people ask me, and I said, not much going on this summer, but we'll be back at it strong and come early fall, late summer, and here we are.
Yeah, it's middle of August, and we're
Friday Night Lights.
We're here. We're ready for high school football. This will be. We'll talk only high school football today. We'll kind of ease our fans back into things here.
We don't want to overdo it.
We don't want to.
For our first time viewers, we don't want to overdo it.
We'll preview the whole high school football season. We got our tab coming out this week. Hopefully you picked one up.
Yep.
Before you head out to wherever you're going Friday night.
It's the Bible for area teams. You got to have it
for week 1. So we'll get you all set for that coming up on this episode of Xtra Points. Well, Bear, it seems like it's earlier and earlier every year, and maybe it'll just keep trending that way for a while. But here we are. Middle of August, and it's time for high school football season to begin. Friday night, everybody gets going.
Yeah, and when you touched on the earlier and earlier, and I'm gonna kind of allude or talk about that a little bit in the football weekend edition this week, because numbers are down a little bit, and you can blame it on concussions, or you can blame it on maybe kids that are specialized and they're just playing one sport. But for whatever reason, numbers are down, and that's an alarming trend.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit of everything.
I think it's a combination of everything, yeah.
Yeah. Should probably introduce ourselves here. John Barry here. He's Gazette sports writer / high school sports guru extraordinaire.
Yes.
I'm Gazette sports writer Eric Schmolt. We try to come to you every week now that the high school season's kind of back around.
Yep.
And bring you whatever the big storylines are coming. We'll also... Packers have started their preseason.
Coming up in about 14 days.
So. Typically, we go through a little bit of everything from around the area in the state, but this week we're just trying to get you ready for the high school football season. So we're going to go through here some of our area teams and conferences, and you can follow along if you've already picked up the edition of the high school football preview tab. Came out in Wednesday's Gazette.
It did,
or is coming out in Wednesday's Gazette, depending on when you're watching this. And you can kind of follow along, and I think probably. Why don't we start right here in Janesville?
Okay.
And I'd say we'll start with the playoff team from last year. Janesville Parker went 4-5 last year, but found a way to make the playoffs because there weren't the sufficient amount of over 500 teams. So they found their way in and got a little bit of a taste of the playoffs. And I think this year, trying to work themselves back to a point where they're in automatically. I think we're looking at a team here that can probably finish above 500 and maybe even surprise teams with contending in the Big 8 a little bit.
I would concur, and that's I did their preview for the tab, and in talking to Clayton Krieger, he kind of talked about that year 1 where it was he called it semi-successful. He said they made the playoffs, but not the way they wanted to. They kind of backed in, and he didn't want that. But he said the Vikes have definitely set the bar high this year. He said there's things going on that he's got them excited, and the kids are – there's a good group there. Let's put it that way. They're going to welcome back Sandy Toyer, who's going to be a big addition because he ran the 40 in 4.3, and you don't coach that. That's quick. And DJ Vance is back at tailback.
I kind of wonder who was using.
Well, I'm not saying how accurate it was. I don't think he's Usain Bolt.
There's a lot of 4.3s out there that never get seen, it seems like.
True.
But hey, he's fast. We know that.
He is fast, and he's one of the weapons that they're going to have at their disposal. And in the Big 8 – and they'll find out right away with Verona, because Verona will come in and run that counterclockwise, whatever you want to call it, trap play that they run so successfully that it's coming and you still can't do anything about it. And, DJ Vance is back. He was a back of the year in the Big 8 a year ago. Ed Jacobson's moved to fullback, and they're big up front.
To me, I mean, that's kind of where it starts, and it has in the Big 8 for a long time. If you have the bodies up front and the guys up front that can pave the way, then you're gonna contend. And I think this Parker team has that in Malik Williams and Alonzo Velasquez and
Logan Murdy,
and
Juan Harris.
And we got to talk a little about Juan Harris coming back. Played a couple of games for him 2 years ago. Went to Iowa. Committed to Iowa, decommitted from Iowa, committed to Iowa, decommitted from Iowa.
No, he's
He's verbal to Indiana now.
Yep.
And we'll kind of see exactly how he fits back into the mold. But I mean, Division I teams are on him, and if you can add that to the fold, then that's a big deal.
To be honest with you, he is the biggest frame-wise high school kid I've ever seen. I mean, he's 6'5", they listed him at 390 originally. I don't know where he's at now, but he's certainly the biggest kid I've seen, putting pads on. You get him in pads and everything, and he's a monster. But he's a guy that's got to stay healthy. They're going to use him on both lines. They're going to have to spell him as well because, the first couple of weeks it's usually pretty warm, and kids have a hard time going both ways. So interesting to see with Parker. The key for them is going to be their defense. They couldn't get off the field last year on third down, and if they don't do that this year, that high-powered offense just sits there and can't score if you don't have the ball.
It would expect them to score when they do have it, though.
I would expect them to, yes.
Ed Jacobson, obviously.
Yes.
Kind of just a athletic freak.
Yeah, he is.
A little bit. And
Clayton said he's going to get the ball. Yeah.
So, you put even when Vance gets the ball, if you put that line and then you have Jacobson at fullback, that's a pretty nice wall ahead of DJ Vance or Devon Thornton.
You put Toyer at one end and Jaden Ellis on the other, and you could give Jordan Bailey time to throw because we know he's athletic. I would expect Parker scored 19 a game last year, and I would expect them to be in the mid-20s this year. But again, it's going to depend on their defense.
I would say most of the people around the Big Eight seem to think kind of the usual suspects. Middleton, I think, is probably about the top.
I think so.
And then you got the Sun Prairie typical teams, but
La Follette Memorial. I predicted in my Big Eight preview, I thought there was many as 6 teams that could have a shot at the title.
And you included Parker.
I did include Parker as a dark horse. I didn't list him as one of the co-favorites, but certainly I think I picked Middleton to win it, but I wouldn't be surprised. And they're going to find out right away. They're at Memorial on Friday night, and then they follow that up with Sun Prairie in week 2. So the Middleton Cardinals are going to know early on if they're legit or if it's going to be somebody else's year, and they're not going to win a third straight title.
I would say we both would predict Parker will make the playoffs pretty. I think we both feel confident saying that.
Unless things blow up on Friday night against Verona and they're not as good as we thought they were going to be, then it could be a long year. But I would think, again, it's on paper, but on paper they've got talent, but also understand that their scrimmage really didn't go as well as they'd hoped. So scrimmages are tough to really gauge anything because you don't want to show a whole lot because your opponent's going to see that film. So it's hard to say.
To me, Janesville Craig is a little more of a wild card.
I would agree.
Nobody really back on that defense that struggled at times last year. Gave up probably too many points and gotten too many shootouts. But you never know. Maybe this group is better than we think. There's a whole lot of unknowns there. Right. And I think they have the offensive weapons that they will be able to score some points. It'll just be a matter of, kind of similar to Parker. Right. Can they hold their opponents to what they need to win games? And
I remember 2 years ago, I think going up to Middleton when Craig, was playing well at that time, but Nick Kramer was forced into a starting role because it's going to escape me now. The quarterback that had a good year, but he got hurt running the option. Shane Ellis?
Yeah.
Ellis. Okay. Sorry, Shane. And Ben told me at that time, by the time Nick Kramer's done, he's got a chance to be the best quarterback I've had. And he's still sticking to that. Kramer's just a very heady kid, sneaky athletic, but makes good decisions. And he's going to really have to be the key to that offense and not putting them in situations where he can get them into trouble. And I think Nick's going to he'll do a good job of that.
And they've also got weapons around them. I know McCormick is very high on DJ Sweeney, who's kind of the fullback, and they're multiple back sets because they like to run kind of options. They've got Urias Williams. They've got some speed.
They have some playmakers. Yeah.
A tight end, they've got Luke Malminger. Receiver, they've got Noah Berghammer. I mean, these are guys that play multiple sports.
Good athletes, just great athletes. Yeah. And a lot of times great athletes translate well onto the field.
But that defense, I think it's just sitting down with Ben a little bit, and you just kind of look at the depth chart and you go, okay, I don't recognize any of these names. And it's just going to have to kind of be a work in progress, and we'll see how ready they are on Friday night when they go up and play up in Madison.
And I think a lot of it's going to be a lot of the pressure is going to fall on that offense to run clock and control clock and long sustained drives, so that defense isn't put into a lot of pressure right away. And La Follette, a team with Julius Patton back at quarterback, outstanding season a year ago, and their top 2 running backs, so that defense is going to get tested right away.
And I think for Craig too, the middle of their season schedule is pretty tough. So you really need to try to get a couple of these games on the road early on if you want to have yourself in position to be vying for a playoff spot late in the season.
And, your first game is always usually the biggest improvement you see is from week 1 to week 2. So we'll see how that plays out for Craig.
Elsewhere, I would say the big storyline, and we talked about it a lot in the preview, the Rock Valley now going to 10 teams. Parkview and Palmyra are gone.
Yep.
To the Trailways Large. So now we've got one 10-team conference, and then we'll see kind of how the Clintons and the Broadhead Judahs, some of those smaller enrollment schools, now have to step up and play against the Evansville Albanys and Jeffersons and things like that.
And I think the coaches that I talked to Mike Gregory at Edgerton and Jim Mattias at Broadhead Judah, and both of them kind of liked the idea just because, it was so different. Some years the crossovers counted, some years they didn't. It was tough to find non-conference games, and, now you're going to have a true test, a 9-game schedule, no non-conference games, just like the Big Eight. And you're going to see probably the two favorites going head-to-head Friday night, and that's Evansville Albany at Clinton. And, you talked about Coach Spivak said that they're a little banged up. And I don't want to play Evansville Albany when I'm banged up.
No, not probably not the ideal first week matchup.
Not at all.
We also have Broadhead Judah and Bigfoot playing. Yep. I mean, that's a rivalry meeting that they're playing right out of the gate. Yep. So that feels a little weird, but here we go.
Well, and there is
no. Let's try to.
Jim Mattias, and it was dumb on my part for even asking it. I said, "How many conference titles did you win in the 8 years you were there?" And he basically said to me, he goes, "Hey, we were in there with Bigfoot, so they didn't win any, but they had a state runner-up, and they were, they made it to the state semifinals twice in his 8 years. So they didn't win their conference, but almost won a state title, and that will just tell you how dominant Bigfoot was for so long in the South. And now it's one league, and everyone knows Evansville Albany is going to be good. The word is McFarland's got a nice team, but
I think East Troy
will be okay. But I think really when it comes down to it, it's Evansville Albany's to lose. I'd be surprised if they don't. They may not run the table, but I'd be surprised if they're not 8-1 or better.
They've got a lot of skill guys back.
A lot.
Zach Milkey at quarterback, Brennan Banks and running back.
Giant kids up front.
I mean, that defense now has perennially just been very, very good.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think you're right that Evansville Albany has to be the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the interesting thing will be these South teams.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good year for them to be coming in, whereas there were some pretty lean years there at Turner and Clinton,
right,
where if they were stepping up and trying to play these guys,
they were over half.
They were going to be lucky to win a game.
Yep.
That's not the case with any of these 4 teams that are coming in from the South. I think all 4 teams that are coming in from the South are playoff caliber football teams.
I agree. And I think Broadhead Judah is going to be a team that people need to keep an eye on because they bring back an all-conference quarterback in Schmidt. And then, Mattias said that kid is he's legit. And he said, we've got some other kids around him that I'm happy with. And he was really pleased with their scrimmage. So, again, Broadhead Judah, Bigfoot's owned that series. But I would expect Broadhead Judah to probably get a win on Friday night.
I think you're sleeping a little bit on Beloit Turner, too. I mean, you've
don't know enough about them.
You've mentioned all these other South teams that I got a chance to talk to Derek Deal. And, I mean, they just have almost everybody back from that team that really I think people expected them to take a step up, but I don't know if we expected them to tie for the Rock Valley South title and to make it back to the playoffs the way that they did. And they've got some very good athletes back. It starts kind of with Tyler Burt and Juan Reyes.
Yep.
And I think a lot of weapons there. And I think Turner, maybe the dark horse team, even if they did make steps
and
ahead.
I think you had mentioned Ethan Burns was moving to
running back.
So, I mean, Seth Smith was a 3-year, almost a 4-year starter at quarterback. So that's obviously the one area for Turner where, that's going to be tough to replace.
Well, they had some guys last year. I mean, there were times that Smith couldn't play. So guys have played there. I think they'll be all right. I really do.
Yep.
We'll kind of see Edgerton.
Mike's happy with the kids that he's got. Their numbers are down a little bit. They don't have a huge upper class, but the kids that he does have, he's confident in, and I think Edgerton, he feels like they'd be able to compete every Friday.
I would say the same for Bigfoot. They have Jackson Enns back at quarterback this year.
Probably the best athlete in the conference.
I think their line's maybe not as deep as they have been, but I think they'll be pretty good up front as usual. And I think you mentioned Clinton as maybe being a title contender as well. And I think that starts with their 2-headed running backs, Jordan Jones and Peyton Pope.
I think the one team that I got to believe is going to struggle is Whitewater. Just so young. They only got 4 seniors on the team and playing a lot of sophomores and, nothing against that, but you're just not as physically mature at that age as you are, obviously when you're juniors and seniors. And I think it could be a long year for the Whippets.
Other storyline around here is Milton was
first year
quarterback Matt Lee.
Quarterback or coach?
Coach. First year coach. Maybe he's coaching the quarterbacks.
Well, maybe he's coaching quarterbacks. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
They've lost a lot from the two teams that have won back-to-back Badger South titles along with Monona Grove.
But it's a good program, and it's a program that normally doesn't have to reload. They just rebuild. They just reload, and they get Mount Horeb first game, and Mount Horeb has been scoring like crazy the last couple of years. So a good test, a good Badger crossover test for Milton on Friday night.
And then they've got a few games here before they really delve into the Badger South
into the
season,
Monona Groves and everybody else. Yeah. So I think the thing with Milton is where they're going to be at skill position wise. I think they've got some big holes to fill there, but that doesn't mean that they won't find anybody. And like I say, that's a program that just churns out good players year after year.
And they're going to be tough because a lot of the wrestlers go out, like Billy Pitzner. Guys, they're not going to back down from anybody once they get out on that football field. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing with the Badger South is I think Monona Grove obviously is always going to be there as a favorite. But the Badger South isn't very deep this year, so
Oregon, Stoughton, you
gotta like Milton's chances pretty much every week.
At least I like their chances to get to the playoffs.
I like their chances to be in just about any game.
I would agree.
Playing.
Yep.
Yeah, then in the Southern Lakes,
the most wide open. I think the most wide open conference because there's Waterford's going to be good. Badger's obviously going to be good after getting the state semis last year. Union Grove's got a nice team. Delavan's got the weapons, as many weapons,
offensively as
anybody.
We have,
and probably with Jake Benzing and Cesars, two of the best playmakers in that conference.
It's going to be, I think Delavan's really the team that they're always kind of intriguing because they've had these guys for the last couple of years. And it's really just, can they hold teams down enough to where they're not having to score every single possession?
Exactly. Yep.
And talking to Brett St. Arnold, he's focused on that defense. He's coached the offense more these last couple of years, and he said, "Hey, it doesn't really matter if we could score 40 points a game, but if we're giving up 41, that doesn't matter." So he has switched his focus, and he's coaching the defense this year. And I think that could have a really big impact. He's a young head coach. Yep. The kids really seem to buy into.
He's fiery, and he's gained the respect of that program and those kids. And I think each year Delavan at least fundamentally gets stronger. They don't make the silly mistakes that a lot of times in the past you'd see them make. And I think that's a sign of maturity as a team and really as Brett as a head coach.
And I think it doesn't sound like a big feat if you hold teams to 21 points a game or something like that. Right. But even if they did that, I would probably like their chances because this offense should be able to
put up points. Yes, definitely.
Like you said, Badger made it all the way to the
state semis.
One win away from going to state last year, and they lost some. They lost Tyler Vandeveld, who's a really good running back. Right. But that's another program that it's very entrenched, and they don't really miss a beat.
He does a great job, and all the credit last year he gave to those kids, and he said, these kids, even when we were down 14-0 one game, he said they just didn't panic, and he said because of that, we were able to get through the choppy waters into calmer seas, and that's what they did. And playoffs, they played their best football, and really were maybe one drive away from playing for a state title. So, they're going to be good. And the Elks certainly, are going to be able to compete. I don't think there's any question about that either.
They did last year. Yeah. They were in a lot of close games. Just didn't really get it done in the fourth quarter.
No.
Tom Lee's been there long enough to know exactly what that program needs to do. And they run the ball down your throat and eat up clock. And I think we'll expect to see the same. And if you make a couple of those plays in the fourth quarter and instead of being on the other end of that, then all of a sudden you're right there again in the playoff mix.
Well, let's go through Big 8. I like Middleton.
Can I take the field?
No.
Or do I have to pick
got to pick somebody.
Give me Memorial.
Madison Memorial, okay. Rock Valley, I'm sticking with Evansville Albany.
I think you'd be silly to bet against them right now.
Okay.
I can't do it.
No. Badger South.
Would you give me the field there?
I will give you the field there, yes.
I'm still not going to take it.
Okay, all right. Badger South, I got to go with the Silver Eagles just because of the tradition and there's so much uncertainty with Milton and doesn't mean they're not going to be a good team, but I just think the uncertainty and the new head coach, I'll go with Monona Grove and the Badger South.
Yeah, I think you have to. Yep. Again, when you get these teams that do it every year, it's hard to bet against them. In the Lakes,
I'm going to go with the Wolverines. Waterford for this will be their 4th straight title if they win it. I believe 2 of them they've shared and 1 outright, so this would be number 4 in a row for them.
I'll take Badger.
Okay, all right.
I think they build off of what they did last year. I know they lost them, but I think they can go.
And
back
I think of the 4,
again.
that's going to be the one that is going to be the closest. Let's put it that way.
And we got to keep a couple eyes on the Trailways Large. We don't have
the Vikings and Palmyra,
not a conference we're familiar with because there's no other teams that we're really in it.
And there's some long bus trips. I hope they grab subways or Culvers or something on the way back or the way there, so that they can enjoy that 2-hour bus ride to Fenimore or wherever they're headed and go from there. But for Parkview, I think the one thing is, and Bob Myers will talk about it, is it's being competitive. Just being in games where you're not down big at half against a good Evansville team or something like that, where you can get kids confidence, and the younger kids keep interest in the program. That was the biggest problem. Is you get beat so badly week in and week out, the 7th, 8th, 9th graders don't want to come out, and that's where the realignment should help.
I think it's already helped. They've got some of those basketball players out that maybe weren't ever thinking about football before. So I think they should be in the mix. I think in that conference
again,
this year.
I don't know.
We don't know a ton about them.
I don't know anything about the Trailways.
They won 3 games last year in the Rock. I mean, so I think they go there and get some.
And I hope they do, because that. With what they've been up against for so many years with their enrollment compared to everybody else's, the fact that they were 600-700 less than McFarland, good for them. And I hope they enjoy it, and I hope they take advantage of it. And next year when they go all in on all sports, then it's going to be interesting.
I think that's
probably it. Yeah, I don't have much more.
We'll be here every week trying to break down some of the big matchups. We talked about some of the big ones right away this week. There are no more weird non-conference. Get your feet wet. And,
it's kind of nice.
You're going. You're getting there,
especially in the Rock and Big 8, where you don't have to chase down somebody that went to River Valley to play a game or something. So.
What do you guys want to see on the show? You can let us know as we...
Please do. And send in your memorabilia so we don't have to look at the 1996 Cold directory for Janesville.
We probably could clean this space up a little bit for our viewers. But let us know if there's anything else that's on your mind or anything you want to see. You can email us at sports@gazetteextra.com or find Bear or I on Twitter. You can also follow along. We'll be tweeting throughout games to kind of keep you posted on scores this year.
I'll be at Evansville, Albany at Turner, and you'll be at Janesville, Parker, and Verona, right?
That's right.
Okay.
You can find us on YouTube or iTunes and leave a comment there if you want. Any number of ways you can find a way to get a hold of us.
Feel free.
You can call Bear on a cell phone if you can find his number. There's plenty of people around here that have it.
Yes, so call it. Text me. Snapchat.
We'll be back here next week. We'll probably talk a little more Badgers and Packers, and we'll see where we stand after week 1 of the high school football season. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.